Now going to question number 13, we always read the prompt first, and this one is asking us for something that logically completes the text. And for this question, it tends to be a predictive question type where we're predicting what's going to come next. But if you simply summarize the text, one answer will usually match that summary. So let's put that to the test here. Many of Shakespeare's tragedies address broad themes that still appeal to today's audiences. For instance, Romeo and Juliet, which is set in the Italy of Shakespeare's time, tackles the themes of parents versus children and love versus hate, and the play continues to be read and produced widely around the world. But understanding Shakespeare's so-called history plays can require a knowledge of several centuries of English history. Consequently, so what we're hearing here is that there are some of Shakespeare's plays, the tragedies, that they address broad themes that appeal to today's audiences. Themes like parents versus children and love versus hate. And therefore, these continue to be read and produced around the world. But on the other hand, there are the history plays that are very specialized. They require a knowledge of several centuries of English history. Therefore, maybe it's just talking about the idea that less people are really interested in the history plays. So let's start looking at the answers. A says, many theater goers and readers today are likely to find Shakespeare's history plays less engaging than the tragedies. That makes sense. B, some of Shakespeare's tragedies are more relevant to today's audiences than 20th century plays. Well, this all sounds good. The tragedies are more relevant to today's audiences than the history plays, not 20th century plays. So there was a little switch out of the right phrase for the wrong phrase at the end of answer choice B. C, Romeo and Juliet is the most thematically accessible of all Shakespeare's tragedies. That wasn't really the point here. The point was more that all of the tragedies are more accessible and the history plays are less accessible, are less understandable by people. So C is just not really talking about what the passage is talking about. And D, experts in English history tend to prefer Shakespeare's history plays to his other works. This doesn't really make any sense because the text said that for the history plays, you need a knowledge of centuries of English history. And so, if anything, experts in English history are able to understand them, but there was no sign that those experts would even prefer them. They just are able to understand them if they do have that background of centuries of English history. But if we answered in our own words, which is the idea that the tragedies relate to more people in the present day and the history plays relate to less people today, then D is just not really related to that idea. So the answer here is A.